Hey, what's up? How's everybody doing? Today is day number 9 and feeling really good. I just got my run in, did my push-ups, had to do some little meditation before I got out the house. It doesn't get any easier. It was very difficult for me to get out, but that meditation really helped and I got my ass out. Big up to me. You know what I'm saying? Big up to anybody who tunes into this channel. We just getting started. What we do is we like to take a little run and then start to talk about the little topics and just kind of freestyle with it. It's based on a little bit of the research that I've done on some of these topics, and also this is to help out men going through trials, because men are obviously not supported. So this channel is also to support the patriarchal man. We're not looking to be taken advantage of. So anyway, yesterday we talked about Japanese war brides and how it pertains to the female in America, her psyche, and the fact that she's willing to kind of marry any man or have a baby with any man just for her personal interest, not thinking about the man at all. Like the fact that he's going to be discontent with a woman who really doesn't have any interest, value in him, and puts her personal interest first. So that's why we talked about that yesterday. Today, I wanted to get into feminism yesterday and feminism today. So feminism was coined by a guy named Charles Fourier in 1837. In 1848, Wilhelmina Drucker was named the founder of feminism in 1848, I believe. So these started off as like really small organizations, tea time, just having a good time, and over time these turned into organizations once the push got started, really like in the late 20s into the mid 40s. There was World War I, and they needed to have a lot of workers, and we start to see the women taking place in making uniforms and making parts for the GIs that went to war. Okay, and so they also wanted to vote. Okay, so they also wanted to work, which they started to get. So all these things, they happen in a very quick time. Before 1960, the women were able to vote. They're working, obviously, and it starts to take shape into different places, into modern society where we're at now. So it's 2018. Obviously, we have women that are judges. We have women that are heads of state. We have women that run countries, okay? They're CEOs. They're doing big things, okay? So we don't see kind of this environment where they're unable to work unless they just don't want to, okay? Most women would prefer to be at home or just working part-time. From my experience dealing with women, especially if they have children, okay, they're not interested in really chasing after a corporate career. They'd prefer having a man that could be able to work 16 hours a day to be able to provide those type of environments, okay? So we have that, okay? That was the beginning of it, where it basically was like more of a resilience type of thing. Building up courage to be able to go out for the job, building up courage to be able to stand up against white men that abused their wives, because that happened also. We have that era where we have, if you're wearing a tee, they call it the wife beater. And this was coined after, in the 50s, when guys would come back home from working, white men would come back home from working their factory jobs, they'd wail on their wives. And nothing would really happen. And I don't think that really started to have a consequence until the 60s, when we start to see the black white epidemic really getting to a head, and now they were able to find situations where they could blame black men for abusing their wives, and then now it becomes like a case. So that gets wiped away pretty quickly. Really into the mid 80s, there's a huge decline in abuse. The abuse is more in the hands of people with power, people that's in the NBA, NFL, Donald Trump. These people were able to do anything that they wanted to women, kind of hit them over the head and just, rape them or do whatever they wanted to do. And again, there was no consequence. Okay, so we start to see that that power structure was a huge dynamic. But then into the 90s, now we start to see where women seeing the dynamic where men basically of power were going to jail in huge numbers for rape. Even if they didn't do it, they could scream that out and have that as a kind of defense mechanism. So over time, this feminism movement moved from resilient to a wounded kind of victimhood, which Jess Butcher put it, who did a nice TED talk on feminism kind of impeding itself on its head and making men weaker. And I'd have to agree that that's where it's at today, because women would much rather cry misogyny than actually have a resilient and introspective way to deal with their problems. Okay, so how's another way that this happened? This happened mainly because of employment. In most places that we go into, we're dealing with, we're going to deal with the church, we're going to deal with the state, and the state has so many different parts. It's got education, it's got courts, cops, judges, governmental issues such as the DMV. So when we walk into all these places, we always see women, okay? We walk into a school, we see nothing but women. Men are usually in charge of churches, but the community is in charge of the church. And the community is run by women, okay? They're making all the main decisions of the church. It's just being filtered out through the man that they call the pastor or the bishop or the imam, or the in the Jewish faith, I forget what that's called, or the priest in the Catholic Church. All these things are being filtered out by men, but they're run in particular by women. And so this creates a huge power structure where they can say and do pretty much anything that they want. And this is where it's at today. There's no consequences for women for lying, for cheating, for ultimately, if they can kind of destroy someone's livelihood or ability to make money. Okay, and it's really interesting because men. Ooh, nice. Good morning. It's interesting because men can't do the same thing. Okay, so for instance, I was looking at a girl talking about feminism, and so I think it's interesting what she said in regards to what I'm talking about now. So I'm saying that it started off as being equality, but then it turned into an extreme sense of wounded victimhood, where a woman can just cry misogyny whenever she wants, whenever she feels like she's stopped, okay, rather than building up courage. So this woman put it in another sense. She said that it's more than equality. She says that it's equity. And so the way she put it, she gave an example of a man sitting on a stool and a woman sitting on a stool, looking over a wall. And so the man is still going to be taller than the woman, so she should get a bigger stool. Okay, so now she used a simple example because I don't think that she's got the universal mindset to go any deeper, because if she did, she would ultimately really point out the fact that what she's saying is the same thing that I'm saying, is that she wants an edge. Okay, she wants an edge. And so women are basically saying that they deserve to have an edge, okay, rather than this thing of resilience and courage and working hard, just like women in 1919 and 1848 did. These women kind of worked hard to get different things that they were doing, just like heads of state, just like different women. Some of them work hard. Now, this woman, Jess Butcher, who did the TED Talk on feminism, it was interesting because, you know, she's one of the women that I want to big her up, because I know I have personal friends of mine who think kind of the same way, and they do the same. They contribute all their success to the ability to kind of be able to, they contribute all their success to men, okay? Their ability to interact with men, their ability to be attractive around men, and then they get favors based on that, okay? They move up quick based on that. They have the ability to be accessible and be in the public eye because men put them there, okay? So, you know, it's just like me. There's certain things that I do. Definitely, I'd prefer to have a woman that's attractive, can wear high heel shoes to be able to present certain ideas. And so I'm using her, but she needs to understand that she's using me also. And so we have this kind of common bond. The problem is when they're not acknowledging that fact that we're kind of using each other, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. I mean, there's a reason why most men can't get jobs in the pharmaceutical industry. It's because a woman looks more attractive going into a doctor's office than a guy, okay? Unless he's very metrosexual, they're just not going to want that type of a guy around now in 2000, especially in 2018. That was like, even 10 years ago, it was like that, okay? So, you know, we're talking about where feminism is at today. I had looked at a video of feminism. Actually, I don't think it was named feminism. It was Madonna making a political talk at a rally. And, you know, Madonna's a star, and, you know, we know she's dated some thugs. So, you know, we know she's got some thug in her. But what's interesting, though, is that this was still in the public eye, but she was doing a rally, I believe it was after the presidential election, and she was saying that this can't be, we got to do something better. And she basically was telling people that Madonna said that the White House should be blown up. Now, if a man was to say that, there will be consequences, okay? A man can't just say that over the airways and nobody shows up at his house, okay? But see, a woman, she can do that and there's no consequences. So this builds up this kind of gene where women see that and they're like, wow, that's me, I can do the same thing. So, you know, they can lie, and they can just get away with it, okay? And they just, especially they start really crying. And I remember a few years back, I looked at this, my first MGTOW video was probably like maybe 2 years ago, but there's a girl that did a video on how women manipulate men, and she used this show called Snapped. And if you're not familiar with it, that's a show where women it's strictly women that do some of the most heinous crimes, and they don't get away with it. But what's interesting to see is how they try to manipulate the system and how they try to manipulate the men once they're caught in the act, even red-handed. They'll still try and act like, good morning, they'll still try and act like they didn't do anything, they were faultless. And that's because of what they're looking at, like in our society. If they can see other women, getting away with crying rape when there's no rape, they can see women bring men to trial for something that happened 30 to 40 years ago, including and not limited to non-penetration. We have a serious problem, okay? And so, again, the reason why we're doing these talks is because a lot of this information I didn't know, and I'm hoping that brothers will take heed to some of this information so we can make more better and more practical decisions moving forward, because a real DNA. This, I'm going to call it Feminism 2000, is the faultless type of attitude. And I've had arguments with women like that where they were just faultless, and it's just very discouraging to see that, okay? So how's another reason this happened? I brought up the fact that women are in the public eye everywhere you go, where it's going to be a government agency, it's going to be predominantly women, okay? So in the most predominant function in our society, which is school, we see them on every single post, and including and not limited to principals and I forgot what's over the principal that run the districts, but the district head superintendent. Okay, we see women in those positions as well. And so there's kind of been like a red carpet kind of layered out. There's been countless research done on how girls basically move up quicker, have better grades in school throughout, as opposed to boys. Okay, the stats are out. Men have a higher suicide rate. There's a higher dropout rate for boys as opposed to girls. So this is the society that's been layered out, and so now we have to try to figure out how to deal with kind of the crumbles that's happened because of this society that's been layered out, because of this kind of blank feminism, because there is no feminism. There is no hate that's happening with women. They're not being treated harshly. It's interesting because even with the Boko Haram situation a few years back, people started crying, oh, the girls. But I had no idea that boys were being killed 2 years prior to that and being burned alive, and nothing was done. So it's only until they started screaming girls, then that's when action started to happen. So we know this is a worldwide issue. We talked about the suicide rate. It's higher in men than women. So we got to be cautious. We need to have a regimen as well as a regiment. Okay, a regimen would be a number of troops. And that would be your brotherhood, guys that you can connect with, you can train with, and talk about these issues. Because that's our biggest issue. If we don't talk about it, we're going to end up just like this woman who doesn't talk, just wants to be happy, and she just leaves a trail of blood behind her. And the blood is us, guys, okay? We have to deal with the consequences of dealing with a female who basically has no interest in us. She's just after her personal interest. And if you didn't look at the War Brides video, I suggest you do take a look at that. Okay. Again, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and make it prosperous. And I want to pick up the black, white, yellow, and purple. Whatever. Do your thing. We out here.